The day Earth changed forever started like any other. The morning news talked about weather and sports, while people rushed to work through busy streets. But at exactly 12 o'clock UTC, every screen on Earth, from Times Square's giant displays to children's tablets, went dark. When the screens came back on, they showed something that made the world stop. A massive ship, darker than the space around it, hung above Earth. It was bigger than any human-made structure, its surface covered in marks that looked like battle scars. This was the flagship of the Eternal Legion, though humanity didn't know that name yet. The message came in perfect English, broadcasted in every language on Earth at the same time. The voice was deep and clear, like thunder rolling across a metal sky. People of Earth, I am Commander Stone of the Eternal Legion. For 10,000 years, we have traveled the galaxy seeking worthy opponents. 10,000 civilizations have faced our challenge. 10,000 civilizations have fallen. Now, it is your turn. In the United Nations emergency meeting room, world leaders watched with sweating faces as Commander Stone's image filled their screens. He looked almost human, but not quite. His skin was pale gray, and his eyes glowed with a faint blue light. Scars crossed his face like a map of battles won. Our terms are simple, Commander Stone continued. Send your 3 best warriors to face our champions in combat. Victory means your planet joins our galaxy as equals. Defeat, he paused, his glowing eyes narrowing. Defeat means your civilization is unworthy of existence. The UN Security Council erupted into chaos. The Russian representative demanded they launch every nuclear weapon. The Chinese delegate insisted they needed time to prepare their best special forces. The American president wanted to negotiate. But General Roberts, an old veteran with more experience than any of them, stood quietly watching the alien ship through the window. He noticed something nobody else had. The ship's weapons weren't aimed at Earth's cities or military bases. They were pointed at Earth's oceans. They're smarter than we think, he said, his voice cutting through the panic. Those weapons aren't for destroying us. They're positioned to flood every coastal city on Earth. They don't want to destroy humanity. They want to force us to fight them. The room fell silent. On the screens, Commander Stone waited patiently, like a teacher watching students struggle with a test. You have 24 hours to select your champions, he announced. Choose wisely. They will face 3 challenges in our arena. Each challenge tests different skills. Each challenge has ended civilizations. As the message ended, data started flowing into Earth's computers. Images of past battles, specifications of the arena, and the basic rules of engagement. The Legion wasn't hiding anything. They were proud of their history, confident in their superiority. In London, Tom finished teaching his physics class, unaware he would soon be chosen. In Brazil, Maria welded a section of underwater pipeline, not knowing her skills would be needed for more than repairs. In Canada, Jack guided a group of lost hikers to safety, unable to imagine he would soon guide humanity through its greatest challenge. The world's militaries scrambled their forces. Special operations teams prepared for selection. Fighter pilots ran to their jets. But in a small office in Geneva, Dr. Laura Martinez, a behavioral scientist, studied the Legion's battle footage with growing excitement. Look at their warriors, she told her colleague, pointing at the screen. They're perfect, too perfect. Each one is specialized for a specific type of combat. They've engineered themselves into corners, becoming so specialized they've forgotten how to adapt. She picked up her phone to call the UN Security Council. She had figured out humanity's best chance of survival, and it wasn't what anyone expected. They wouldn't win this fight with soldiers. They would win it with ordinary people who had spent their lives adapting to challenges. The clock was ticking. Humanity had 23 hours left to choose its champions, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The next 20 hours were the longest in human history. While armies around the world prepared their best soldiers, Dr. Martins and her team worked nonstop, studying every piece of data the Eternal Legion had shared. Look at this, She told the UN Security Council, pointing to a video of past battles. Every civilization that sent soldiers lost. The Legion expects military fighters. They're ready for that. We need to surprise them. In the room, General Roberts nodded slowly. You want to send civilians. It wasn't a question. He had seen enough wars to know that sometimes the best fighters weren't soldiers at all. Dr. Martinez smiled. Not just any civilians. We need people who solve problems every day. People who adapt. People who think differently. The first person they called was Tom Brown. He was grading physics tests when his phone rang. 10 years ago, he had been a champion fighter. Now at 40, he taught high school physics and coached wrestling. When they told him Earth needed him, he looked at the half-graded papers on his desk and said, "Let me finish marking these tests first. My students deserve to know their grades." The Legion's ship picked up unusual activity at a deep-sea oil platform off the coast of Brazil. Maria Torres was finishing her 12-hour shift of underwater welding when she got the message. She had won wrestling medals in college, but her real strength came from working in one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth. Every day, she solved problems that could kill her if she made a mistake. "You want me to fight aliens?" she asked, still in her diving suit. "Will I get to keep my welding torch?" The third call went to the Canadian wilderness. Jack Cooper was teaching a survival class when the military helicopter landed. He had spent 20 years as a rescue paramedic in the Rocky Mountains, saving lives in conditions that would kill most people. He could start a fire in a snowstorm, treat a snake bite with basic tools, and find water in a desert. "I'm not a fighter," he said when they explained the situation. "That's exactly why we need you," Dr. Martinez replied. When Commander Stone received Earth's choice of champions, he was confused for the first time in centuries. His second-in-command, Captain Blade, laughed out loud. "They send us a teacher, a welder, and a wilderness guide." Blade's voice echoed through the ship's command center. "This must be a joke, or they've already accepted defeat." But Stone wasn't laughing. He had conquered 10,000 civilizations by understanding his opponents. Something about these choices made him uncomfortable. "Show me everything about them," he ordered. The Legion's computers displayed the humans' lives, Tom teaching physics, then using those same principles in his evening wrestling classes. Maria working underwater in storms that would terrify most humans, solving complex problems while watching her oxygen levels. Jack running into burning forests to save lost hikers, treating injuries with whatever he could find. "They're not warriors," Captain Blade said. "No," Stone replied quietly. "They're something we've never fought before. They're survivors." On Earth, the three chosen humans met for the first time at a secret facility in Switzerland. They had less than an hour to prepare before the Legion would take them. "I studied the arena data," Tom said, drawing diagrams on a whiteboard. "It's all about physics. Every challenge, every environment, it follows rules." Maria nodded, checking her equipment. "Rules can be used against them. I break rules underwater every day. That's how I stay alive." "We work together," Jack added, laying out his medical kit. "That's what humans do best. We help each other survive." As the hour ended, a beam of light appeared in the room. The Legion was ready to begin. Earth's three champions stood together, ready to face whatever came next. They weren't humanity's strongest, fastest, or most skilled fighters. They were something much more dangerous. They were problem solvers who refused to give up. The beam of light grew brighter. The selection was complete. The real challenge was about to begin. The bright light faded, and Earth's three champions found themselves in a room made of shining metal. Through massive windows, they could see stars, and in the distance, a blue dot that was Earth. The room was warm, but Tom noticed his physics textbook felt lighter than usual. "We're in lower gravity," he whispered, letting his book float slightly when he released it. "About 60% of Earth's." Commander Stone entered the room, his heavy boots making no sound on the metal floor. Up close, he was even more impressive. He stood 8 feet tall, his armor covered in symbols that seemed to move in the starlight. "Welcome to the arena of the Eternal Legion," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "For 10,000 years, this has been the proving ground of civilization. This is where worth is tested. This is where futures are decided." The walls changed, becoming transparent, and the three humans gasped. They were inside a massive sphere floating in space. The sphere was split into different sections, each one a different world. In one part, they saw an ocean that moved in strange ways. In another, mountains floated in midair. A third section glowed with heat that made the air shimmer. 3 challenges, Stone explained. 3 environments. 3 chances to prove humanity's worth. He touched a panel on the wall, and images appeared. "These are our champions." The first image showed a warrior so thin they almost looked like a shadow. "Swift," Stone said, "master of zero-gravity combat. Never defeated in the void." The second image revealed a creature with gills and webbed hands. "Deep, born in pressure that would crush your submarines. Undefeated in liquid combat." The third champion appeared, and even Jack, who had seen many strange things in his rescue work, took a step back. It looked like it was made of living metal. "Storm," Stone said with pride, "engineered to survive in conditions that melt rock. Perfect for the final challenge." Maria studied the champions carefully. "Your warriors are each made for one environment," she said. "What happens if they have to fight somewhere else?" Stone's glowing eyes narrowed. "They don't. Each champion fights only in their perfect arena. That is how we ensure the ultimate test." Tom, Jack, and Maria shared a look. They had all had the same thought. These perfect warriors had a big weakness. They were too perfect, too specialized. "You have 1 hour to prepare," Stone announced. "You may use any tools you brought from Earth. The first challenge begins in the Void Arena." After Stone left, the 3 humans huddled together. "Did you see how they move?" Tom asked. "Even their walk shows they're not used to adapting. Each one is built for exactly one thing." Jack opened his medical kit, checking his supplies. "On the mountain, the weather can change in minutes. You either adapt or die. These warriors, they've never had to change." Maria grinned, pulling out her toolkit. "In deep water, everything can go wrong at once. You can't be perfect at one thing. You have to be good enough at everything." They spent the next hour planning. Tom explained how physics worked differently in zero gravity, sharing what he taught his students about momentum and force. Maria showed them tricks she used to move and work in awkward positions underwater. Jack taught them quick ways to communicate in emergencies. As they prepared, cameras watched them. In the Legion's command room, Captain Blade laughed at their simple preparations. "They bring wrenches and first aid kits to fight our warriors. This will be the shortest challenge in our history." But Commander Stone wasn't laughing anymore. He watched the humans work together, teach each other, and adapt their plans. In 10,000 years of battles, he had never seen anything like it. "Prepare the Void Arena," he ordered. "And Captain, don't be so sure of victory. I think these humans are about to show us something new." The arena's lights began to dim. The first challenge was about to begin, and the greatest warriors in the universe were about to learn that being perfect at one thing isn't as powerful as being able to adapt to anything. The Void Arena was bigger than 3 football fields. Pieces of metal and broken ships floated everywhere, creating a maze in zero gravity. The air was thin, and the only light came from distant stars and glowing strips along the arena walls. Tom, Maria, and Jack floated near one entrance, wearing simple spacesuits the Legion had provided. On the other side, Swift moved like a shadow between floating debris. The alien warrior's body seemed to bend in impossible ways. "Remember," Tom whispered through their helmet radios, "in zero gravity, every push has an equal reaction. We can use that." Commander Stone's voice boomed through the arena. "The rules are simple. Disable your opponent or push them into the red zone at the arena's edge. You have 1 hour. Begin. Swift moved instantly, shooting through the debris field like a bullet. The humans barely had time to push away from each other before the warrior passed through where they had been, sharp blades extending from its arms. "Split up," Maria called. "Don't give it an easy target." They separated, using the debris as cover. Jack pushed off a broken ship part, heading up. Maria went left, using her experience of moving in awkward positions. Tom stayed where he was, watching Swift's movement pattern. "It's using the smallest pieces as speed boosts," Tom said over the radio. "Look at the way it's bouncing between them, just like a physics problem about momentum." Swift attacked again, heading straight for Jack. But the rescue medic was used to staying calm in dangerous situations. He waited until the last second, then pulled a handful of small medical clips from his kit and released them in Swift's path. The tiny objects floating in space forced Swift to twist away. The warrior was fast, but even a small impact at these speeds could send it off course. "Good thinking," Maria called. She had been unscrewing parts from the debris with her tools. Now she had a handful of metal pieces. "Tom, remember that game you showed us? The one you used to teach students about gravity?" Tom grinned inside his helmet. "Gravity pool. Maria, you're brilliant. Everyone, start placing metal pieces in a pattern. I'll do the math." Swift watched in confusion as the humans began positioning debris in what looked like random spots. The warrior had never seen prey act this way. They were supposed to fight or hide, not redecorate the arena. Captain Blade's voice came through Swift's radio. "Stop playing with them. End this now." Swift moved to attack again, but this time something was wrong. The debris wasn't floating randomly anymore. The humans had created a three-dimensional web of gravity paths, using each piece's mass to affect nearby objects. "Now," Tom shouted. Maria hit a large piece of metal with her wrench, sending it spinning. The spinning metal created a chain reaction, pulling and pushing other pieces through the pattern they had created. Suddenly, the arena was full of moving debris, all following paths Tom had calculated. Swift tried to dodge, but there were too many pieces moving in too many directions. The warrior's perfect moves weren't enough when the entire arena had become one giant physics problem. "Jack," Tom called. "The net." Jack pulled out a roll of emergency medical webbing, something he used to carry supplies in the mountains. In zero gravity, it spread out like a spider's web. Swift, trying to avoid the moving debris, flew right into it. The warrior struggled, but every movement tangled the webbing more. The humans had turned Swift's speed and precision against it. "Maria, would you do the honors?" Tom asked. Maria grinned, using her tools to detach one last piece of debris. The metal chunk floated gently into Swift, pushing the tangled warrior straight into the red zone. A buzzer sounded. Commander Stone's voice seemed quieter than before. "Round 1. Goes to Earth." In the command room, Captain Blade stood in shocked silence. Stone nodded slowly. "They turned the entire arena into a weapon," he said. Perhaps we have underestimated these humans." Jack collected his medical webbing. Maria stored her tools. Tom looked at the pattern of debris they had created and smiled. "2 more rounds to go," he said, "and I think I know how we can win them too." The Void Arena's lights came back on. The first round was over, but the real surprises were just beginning. The water arena was nothing like Earth's oceans. Strange lights pulsed in the deep blue darkness, and the liquid was thicker than water. The pressure was intense, even with their new suits. In the distance, shapes that looked like underwater mountains moved slowly, creating currents that could tear a ship apart. "This is just another day at work," Maria said, checking her suit's pressure gauge, "except the oil raid is trying to eat us." Deep, the Legion's water champion, emerged from the darkness. Its body was made of overlapping scales that shimmered like mother of pearl. Gills along its neck pulsed with each breath, and webbed hands ended in sharp claws. The rules remain the same, Commander Stone announced, his voice somehow clear through the liquid. Disable your opponent or force them into the red zone. You have 1 hour. Deep moved like it was born in the water, which it was. The warrior shot through the liquid faster than any fish on Earth, circling the humans like a shark studying its prey. Those currents, Maria said quietly through their radio. They're like the ones we deal with during deep-sea repairs. Tom, what do you see? Tom was already watching the water movements. The currents follow patterns, like air pressure systems in weather, but underwater. Jack, what about the temperature? Jack had his medical scanner out. Hot and cold spots everywhere, creating microcurrents, just like mountain weather patterns, but with water instead of air. Deep struck without warning, aiming for Tom. But Maria was ready. She had spent years dodging underwater dangers. She pushed Tom aside and raised her welding tool like a shield. Deep's claws scraped against it with a sound that vibrated through the water. The suit joints, Maria called out. Look at how they move, just like deep-sea repair suits. They have the same weak points. Tom understood immediately. In his physics classes, he taught students about pressure points and structural weaknesses. The shoulders and knees, that's where the pressure is highest. Deep attacked again, but this time the humans were ready. They had positioned themselves near one of the moving underwater mountains. Jack, used to reading weather patterns, had noticed something about its movement. Now, he shouted. All 3 humans pushed away just as the mountain shifted, creating a massive current. Deep, focused on the attack, was caught in the flow. The warrior was strong, but strength meant nothing against the power of moving water. Maria quickly attached her safety line, standard procedure for underwater work, to a stable rock. The line stretched out, reaching Tom, who grabbed it and secured himself. Jack held onto Tom, creating a human chain. Like a mountain rescue, Jack said, grinning inside his helmet. Just wetter. Deep struggled against the current, but each movement only made things worse. The warrior had never needed to understand currents. It had always been strong enough to power through them. But now that strength was becoming a weakness. Maria saw her chance. Using the safety line for stability, she swung through the water. Her welding tool, designed to work under extreme pressure, sparked to life. The heat created a sudden temperature change in the water around Deep. The temperature shift caused the current to twist unexpectedly. Deep, already struggling, spun out of control. The warrior tumbled through the water, straight into the red zone. The buzzer sounded, muffled by the liquid. Round 2, goes to Earth, Commander Stone announced. His voice was definitely quieter now. In the command center, Captain Blade slammed his fist on the control panel. Impossible. Deep has never lost in water combat. They're not fighting our way, Stone said slowly. They're turning our arena against us, using knowledge instead of strength. As the humans were lifted out of the water arena, they grinned at each other. 2 rounds won. 1 to go. The next one will be the hardest, Tom said, wringing water from his suit. But I think I know how we can win it. Maria nodded, already checking her tools for heat damage. They're strong, but they only know one way to fight. We know 1,000 ways to survive. The final challenge waited. The fate of Earth would be decided in a battle of fire and storm. The heat hit them like a wall even through their new protective suits. The final arena was a nightmare of fire and lightning. The ground was made of metal that glowed red-hot, and storms of electricity danced overhead. Gravity here was 3 times stronger than Earth's, making every movement a struggle. This is what the inside of a star looks like, Tom said, his voice filled with wonder despite their situation. The heat, the pressure, the electromagnetic storms, it's all like a solar physics lesson come to life. Storm, the Legion's final champion, emerged from a lightning strike. Its body was living metal, changing color with the heat. Electricity arced between its fingers, and its footsteps left molten footprints in the metal floor. "This is your final challenge," Commander Stone announced. His voice was different now, curious rather than confident. "The same rules apply. 1 hour to win. Begin." Storm didn't attack immediately like the others had. Instead, it raised its arms, and the arena responded. Lightning struck where the humans stood, forcing them to dive apart. The ground beneath them began to melt. "The gravity's pulling my medical kit apart," Jack called out, struggling to keep his supplies together. "And this heat, it's worse than any forest fire." Maria tried to move, but the heavy gravity made it hard. "My tools are barely holding together. This place wants to melt everything." Tom watched Storm carefully, his mind racing. The warrior wasn't just fighting in the environment, it was controlling it. But there was something about the way it moved. "Look at its feet," Tom shouted over the roar of thunder. "It's following the electromagnetic field lines, just like iron filings in a magnetic field experiment." Storm commanded another lightning strike, but the humans had already started moving. Despite the crushing gravity, they remembered their training. Jack had taught them how to conserve energy in harsh conditions. Maria knew how to work despite equipment limitations. Tom understood the physics of their enemy's power. "The lightning," Tom said quickly. "It's following paths of least resistance. If we can change the conductivity around us." Maria's eyes lit up. She pulled out her remaining tools, like redirecting a current during underwater repairs. "Jack, what do you have that doesn't conduct electricity?" Jack opened what was left of his medical kit: plastic clips, rubber tubing, and some ceramic medical tools. "Will those work?" "Perfect," Tom said. "Quick physics lesson. Everything in here is charged. If we can create a zone of low conductivity." They worked together as Storm watched, confused by their actions. The warrior had never seen prey try to change the arena itself. Victims usually try to attack or run. These humans were doing something else entirely. Using Jack's non-conductive medical supplies and Maria's knowledge of electrical systems, they created a pattern on the ground. Tom calculated where the electromagnetic fields were weakest, directing their efforts. The crushing gravity made every movement exhausting, but they didn't stop. Storm grew tired of waiting. It summoned its greatest attack, drawing power from the entire arena. Lightning gathered around its body, building up to a massive strike. "Now," Tom yelled. As Storm released its attack, the humans triggered their trap. The pattern they'd created redirected the electrical charge. The lightning couldn't follow its usual paths. For the first time ever, Storm lost control of its power. The backlash hit Storm like a hammer. The warrior staggered, its metal body overloading with its own electricity. It stumbled backward, step by step, until it crossed into the red zone. The buzzer sounded one final time. The arena fell silent. "The final round," Commander Stone said, his voice filled with disbelief, "goes to Earth." In the command center, Captain Blade stood speechless. Screens showed impossible readings. Storm's perfect control had been broken by simple physics and human ingenuity. 3 rounds, Stone whispered. 3 victories. In 10,000 years, no species has ever. As the humans were lifted from the final arena, exhausted but triumphant, Tom looked at his teammates and smiled. Not bad for a physics teacher, a welder, and a paramedic. Not bad at all, Maria agreed, holding up her half-melted tools. "Think Earth's safe now." Jack checked them both for injuries, grinning. "Safe. After this, I think the whole galaxy better watch out for humans." The Legion's greatest warriors had been defeated, not by superior strength or advanced technology, but by humanity's greatest weapons: adaptability, teamwork, and the ability to think in new ways. 1 week after the final battle, the Great Hall of the United Nations was fuller than it had ever been. Commander Stone stood before the world's leaders, but he looked different now. His armor was simpler, and his glowing eyes had softened. Behind him, Captain Blade watched with newfound respect as Tom, Maria, and Jack sat among Earth's representatives. For 10,000 years, Stone began, his voice carrying through the silent hall. The Eternal Legion has traveled the galaxy seeking the strongest warriors. We believe that perfection in combat was the measure of a civilization's worth. He paused, looking at the three humans who had changed everything. We were wrong. Screens around the hall showed images from the battles. The physics-based trap in zero gravity, the mastery of underwater currents, and the final triumph over storm. But now, they also showed something new. Legion warriors training alongside human teachers. Your champions showed us something we had forgotten. Stone continued. True strength isn't about being perfect at one thing. It's about adapting, working together, and finding new solutions to old problems. Tom raised his hand, just like he did in his physics class. Stone nodded, and Tom stood up. Will you tell us about the other civilizations you've encountered? Maybe we can help them too. Stone's expression changed. He smiled for the first time. That's exactly what we hoped you would say. The Legion doesn't want to be conquerors anymore. We want to be teachers and learners, bridges between worlds. And we want humanity to help us. Maria joined the conversation. You mean use what we know about adapting and working together to help other species? Yes, Stone replied. Your victory wasn't just about fighting. You showed us that a physics teacher, a deep-sea welder, and a wilderness medic could overcome our greatest warriors. Not through strength, but through knowledge, creativity, and teamwork. In the back of the hall, Dr. Martinez smiled. Her theory about human adaptability had been right, but even she hadn't expected this outcome. Jack stood up next. What about your warriors? Swift, Deep, and Storm. What will happen to them? Captain Blade stepped forward. They've asked to learn from you. Swift is studying physics with Tom. Deep wants to understand underwater engineering from Maria. And Storm, he chuckled. Storm is learning emergency medicine from Jack. The hall buzzed with excitement. Reporters took pictures as Stone pulled out an ancient scroll. This is the Legion's charter, unchanged for 10,000 years. Today we add a new law. No civilization shall be judged by a single measure. True greatness lies in diversity, adaptation, and cooperation. The Earth's representatives signed the new charter. Then Stone did something unprecedented. He removed his commander's insignia and placed it on the table. The age of the Eternal Legion as conquerors is over, he announced. We offer our technology, our knowledge, and our friendship to Earth. In return, we ask you to teach us what you showed us in the arena, how to adapt, how to work together, how to find unexpected solutions. Tom had returned to teaching physics, but now his classes included young aliens eager to learn about Earth science. Maria trained space engineers in the art of adapting to extreme conditions. Jack's wilderness survival courses helped beings from across the galaxy learn to think on their feet. The Legion's great arena was transformed into a center of learning. Where warriors once fought, students now studied. The battle scars on their mighty ships were covered with symbols of peace and cooperation. In the years that followed, when other civilizations asked how humans had defeated the Legion's greatest warriors, the answer was always the same. We didn't beat them with strength. We showed them a better way to be strong. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, Commander Stone kept a small Earth physics textbook in his quarters. Inside the cover, Tom had written a simple message. The greatest victory isn't defeating an enemy. It's turning them into a friend. The universe's greatest warriors had challenged humanity. They never came back as conquerors. They returned as allies, ready to learn from the species that taught them the true meaning of strength.